Good morning.
Morning.
Today is lesson number 11. Today is the November the 12th, the year of 2023. Topic of today's lesson is David's sin and punishment. David's sin and punishment. I'm looking for something while I'm trying to talk. So. All right. The lesson text, we are in 2 Samuel, the 11th chapter, 2nd to the 5th verse, and we'll skip down to the 14th through the 18th verse. Then we'll skip again to the 26th and 27th verse. That includes the end of that chapter. Then we'll jump over to the 12th chapter, down to the 13th through the 15th verse. So it's a lot of jumping. All right, and the time is 991 BC or 990 BC. The place is Jerusalem. The golden text: wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord, to do evil in his sight? Thou hast killed Uriah, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife. That's 2 Samuel 12, 9th verse. Today's aim. The facts is to review the account of David's tragic sin with Bathsheba. The principle is to expose the dynamics of temptation and the destructive nature of sin. And the application is to warn Christians against falling into temptation and sin as David did. So we do see here that regardless of who you are, we still subject for sin. You know, sin is out there. It's gonna be wherever you are. Right. So whoever you are, there's still sin lurking. I don't care what type of person you think you are. You can be the Pope, and sin is still gonna be there.
That's right.
You know, so it's all about how far you allow sin to take you. You know, whether you fall prey into sin or not. You know, so what I was looking for was Matthew 5th chapter, 29th verse. You know, and it says, and if thy right hand offends thee, pluck it out, and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. You know, so the key word in that scripture is 2 letters. If. That's the key word in that scripture. If. It says, if thy eye offends you, pluck it out. If thy right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Which meaning, God is leaving all that up to you. You are the one responsible for taking control of whatever makes you sin. You are the one responsible. So, you know, the thing about it is, God will never ask us to do anything that he don't think we can do. Anything that he asks us to do, he know for a fact that we can do it.
That's right.
So there is no, if this hadn't have been there, I'd have never done that. Well, God would never put anything in our path that he don't think we can handle. If it's there, it's because he know we can handle it. So temptation is going to be there, but God knows that we can overcome temptation.
That's right.
We have to want to.
That's right. That's it.
And those are the things that I've been saying before. The reason you mess up is because you want to.
That's it.
Nobody else's fault but yours. So the reason you allow temptation to fall into you is because you want to. Now, another thing is they talk of an idle mind. An idle mind is the devil's. That's the devil's playground. You know, an idle mind is the devil's playground. So as long as you're sitting around doing nothing, twiddling your thumbs, have nothing else to do, you know, you're constantly thinking, what if? Could I go and do that? Do you think I can do this? Oh, look at that over there. That looks so fun over there. So as long as you have nothing to do, you're subject for anything.
right.
Because you're open. Now, David, on the other hand, at this particular point in time, David should have been someplace. But he wasn't.
That's right.
David stayed behind. See, it is a custom. This was a springtime. It is a custom that the kings go to battle with their men in the springtime. David didn't go anywhere. Matter of fact, David sent people in his place. David said, no, you go. And he sat there. He stayed in the bed because, you know, that very first verse that we are going to read
Yeah.
said evening time. Evening time. Not morning time.
Yeah.
Evening time when he got out of the bed. So it was late in the evening, and he finally decided, well, let me go on and get up and see what the day brings. Not going to get too far into it. Let me just go on into the lesson because I was just about to start talking. Says, and it came to pass in an evening tide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself. And the woman was very beautiful to look upon. So David got up out of his bed and he walked across his rooftop. Now, you know, you find that a lot. The rooftop, when Ehud killed Eglon, you know, he escaped from the rooftop. You know, everything was happening on the rooftop. You know, and you know, I've been over into this country, and I don't know anything about washing on the rooftop, but I do know that they sunbathe. They sunbathe on the highest peak. You know, and that was just a custom that they did. They sunbathe, and that was a purification process for them. So, in other words, Bathsheba was washing on her rooftop. And what she was actually doing was she was cleansing herself. You know, and I think it's in Deuteronomy, they talks of it, about when a woman goes through their cycles, they have to go through a 7-day purification process after their cycle. You know, and until then they are deemed as being unclean. Right. You know, so until after their purification process, then they are considered clean. And they even tell you that wherever they sit, wherever they lay, whatever touches them, whatever they touch, are also considered to be unclean. And they would have to wait until the evening time before they are considered clean again. You know, so her being up on the rooftop washing, no, she was not trying to be seductive. No, she was not trying to show herself off. She was doing what she should have been doing. This was the ritual that she was practicing. Right. You know, so I've already heard a lot of comments about why was she on the rooftop in the first place, bathing in the nude, you know, but that's what she was supposed to have been doing. Mm-hmm. The only one that was at fault here was David. That's right. You know, and I'm going to get to you on that part, because in that very first verse it says, and from the roof he saw. No, seeing is not a sin. It's what goes after. You know, because in today's time, you can't get away from seeing. I mean, it's just there. It's there. It's in the opening. And I'm not just going to point at the women. It's the men too. We wear things that we just shouldn't be wearing, because we, in our minds, it's not to make other people look at us. It's because that's just something that we want to put on. It's just going to make us feel good for that particular time. You know, so it has nothing to do with what's going on in your head when you decide to put these particular things on. But what you have to understand is, whatever you go out there and do, just know that it is a form of temptation. So what goes along with that, you just have to be willing to accept it. So like I've talked about before, for every choice that you decide to make, there is consequences that comes along with it. So if you don't want to go along with the consequences that may or may not go along with these actions that you portray out there, then just don't do it in the first place. But in other words, you have no choice but to see sometimes. But what separates that is how much control you have over temptation. So just because he saw it doesn't mean that he had to lust it. But see, in David's case, David saw it, then David lusted it, and David wanted it. And there's I don't know if I want to get into that open case just yet, but yeah, I'm gonna keep on going. I ain't gonna get into it just yet. I'll wait a little bit. But it says here, and David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, "Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" He found out who she was. Now, all before, he had no idea who she was. He looked over and, to him it was just another woman. So he saw another woman. Now, on top of him seeing and lusting over a woman, David was married already. David already had a wife. David already had children. So he started lusting over another woman. So David, in turn, is already committing sin. Because now he's lusting. It's no more just looking, he's now lusting. David wants what he sees, because it states in that very first part that, it says that, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. So by him inquiring about this woman, that means he enjoyed what he was looking at. So he took it another step further by inquiring on this particular woman. Now, he could have left that alone, but he inquired on it, so he liked what he saw and wanted more information. And it says that he found out that the woman's name was Bathsheba, which means the daughter of Og. Okay, so he found out the woman's name was Bathsheba. Then he found out that she was the daughter of Eliam, which is an officer in his army. In other words, it was his bodyguard. Okay, somebody who actually protected him. All right. Then he found out that she was the wife of Uriah, a soldier in his army, one of his best. He found out that, this is really close to home. I mean, right there. This was literally his neighbor. The commandment says, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife." This is literally his neighbor. And he's lusting after his neighbor's wife. And David sent messengers. Pay close attention now, all right? Because this is where we're going to get into our discussion at. So pay very close attention to what is being read. I don't know the answers to it. That's why it's an open discussion. Okay, so it says here, and David sent messengers and took her. And she came in unto him, and he lay with her. For she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned into her house. The topic of this lesson is David's sin and punishment. Why not Bathsheba's sin? Was this not an adultery act? See, me and you is on the same page right now. We are on the same page. Okay, because the way I was looking at this was, all right, this is King David. He's the king. So anytime the king inquire anything of anybody, if they fail to do it, they would be subject to death. So when I read this and it says that he sent a messenger and he took her, that meant that this was outside of her will. And see, the only choice that she had in the matter, to me now, this is to me, y'all can have y'all own opinions, but to me, the only choice that she really had was either she go or she die.
Well, sin is sin. Thou shalt not commit adultery.
Sin is sin. And see, I cannot argue with you there. I can't argue. But see, my thing is this. If her punishment after not obeying the king would be put to death, would it have been okay for her to just say, you know what, just kill me because I'm not going to do it? Like I said, this is an open discussion.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, you are free for your own opinion.
Yeah.
Because there is really the thing about it is, okay, you have what you take out of it. I got what I take out of it. And then there's the Bible version.
David threw his power around.
David was throwing around his power.
Yeah.
So David, to me, in other words, was trying to make it seem like she ain't had no other choice. You know, it was either you do or you die. I mean, that's just how I looked at it. That's me.
Your house and arrest you and take you out your house.
Exactly. That's how it was for me. So I mean, it was either David was going to rape her or she was going to consensually give in. Either way it went, I still think that Bathsheba was on the losing end. So either way it would have went for her, you know, I don't know.
She was on the losing end, but still, it was a sin, no matter what. That height went down.
Yeah.
Because right then, when she lay with him, that was her committing adultery. Because she was married.
She was married, but was it by choice?
It wasn't by choice, but it was still sin.
So my question is, by it not being by choice and she was forced into this, is it her sin as well?
It was David's sin, but she sinned as well.
Yeah, I'm on line. I mean, line to agree with First Lady Davis because it didn't say she fought back.
No.
It didn't. It did not say that.
But see, the big picture is David was the big picture, and well, not because he knew better, because of his position.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, you know, First Lady, you got the deacon, you got the deacon here, you got the prophets, you know, as leaders. Leaders gonna be held to a higher standard.
Exactly.
Now the other person can do it too.
Yeah.
And let's not think that she didn't suffer as well because she lost her husband
Yes, you did.
Yes.
and she lost a child.
Yes.
And you know, and I don't know how either one of those feel, but as a parent, you know, that's and a spouse and devastating losses.
That's right.
But God's main purpose was to focus on David.
Yeah.
Because you remember what Nathan said, and I hate to skip ahead, but you remember what Deacon Wade read when it said, God told David through Nathan, because of what you have done, you have given your enemies a reason to curse God and say, man, okay, this is your chosen. David was a man chosen after God's own heart. And said, this is your chosen. Look what he did.
Exactly.
He did all this right here. He did all this right here. That's what we're going to look at. And God said, you're supposed to set the example.
Yeah, but in the end that you read further down that he punished the child too.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, yeah, he did.
He did.
Yeah, because he was born in
It's a sin act.
Yeah.
So I ain't saying she fought or not. I'm saying it's
See,
that she fought it.
and that's
I'm just saying she did sin.
that's exactly where I was getting at right there.
But God is focusing on the big guy. David said, David, all this could have been avoided.
Yep.
If you'd have been where you're supposed to be.
Exactly.
And that's how it is with, like you said, with sin. Like some people say, well, I was tempted because I went to the club. Well, if you wouldn't have been to the club,
You wouldn't have been
if
tempted.
you would have been to the street joint, you wouldn't have to worry about being tempted.
Exactly.
You chose to be because like you said, it's the place you choose to be.
You chose.
Because like, as you said, you going to see stuff. And like I tell people, once you see something, you can never unsee it.
Exactly.
I still remember stuff I seen when I was a teenager. It's still there. It's still there. And I ain't talking about right stuff. It's still there.
You never forget.
But you never forget. It already because you give the enemy a chance to bring it back to your remembrance.
That's
and,
right.
And as you're going to find out, this act got brought back to David and Bathsheba's remembrance on a daily basis.
Yes, it did.
Because the enemy kept using it.
That's right.
Enemy kept using it. So, yes, I do agree with
Yep.
It both sin.
You're right, they did.
Ain't getting around that because she could have fought back there. I know we ain't doing it.
And see, that's what I was trying to get at. That's why I called it an open discussion because what I did not read in here was her acts.
Yeah.
That's what I did not read. I don't know where her intentions was. I don't know what her mindset was. I don't know what her thoughts was. I don't know if she even consented to this, because there's a whole lot that you don't know about Bathsheba. But you know everything about David. You know everything that he thought about, everything that he wanted, everything that he decided to do. But the only thing that you get here is David sent a messenger and he took her.
Yeah.
And then he laid with her. Where was her mindset? That's what you're not getting. That's why I said this is an open discussion. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. This is everybody's Solomon opinion, because nobody really knows where Bathsheba's head was when this all went down. We only know that she was married to Uriah, which she haven't seen for a long time. And according to her, she was really only married to him for 6 days. You know, she'd known him for 30 days and was, well, for 6 months. Known him for 6 months, but was only married to him for 6 days, because that's the only mention that she have physically with him. You know, so you don't know if she was taking the idea that she was missing her husband, she was alone, or you don't know if she was dealing with any of these things that played a part in this adultery act. So when it comes to Bathsheba, we're all assuming.
Which where I agree with First Lady Davis, which goes back to what she said. All you got to stick with what the word says. It's a sin for adultery. And like you said, and I do agree with you leaving it at that.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is God said what God said is a sin. And God is not sweeping that on the rug. What she did was a sin, because it was adultery. Because I ain't want to, and the reason I said it, because I ain't want to give nobody excuse from where, you know, where I did it because this way it happened. I had this situation or whatever. It's a sin. It was a sin then.
Then when he said, always in Bible, to in the scripture, that no sin go unpunished. You know, go out the way you look things off is a sin.
You know what I read over and over?
Mm-hmm.
After the messenger brought her, she went in to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he laid with her.
And I ain't gonna hold you deep under. You got a lot of ground to cover.
Oh no, you're not holding me up at all.
You got a lot of ground to cover. But I think the main point is what God is focusing on David.
David is the main focus.
That's the main focus.
David is the main focus. That, like I said, that was just a question that I was trying to figure out. I mean, you know, what are you thinking about? Yes, sir. That's a good point there. I ain't even think about that one, but you're right about that. Huh? She also tried to cover herself when she went back or sent message back to David and said, I conceived, I'm pregnant. You know, so that's something she was actually trying to get him to help cover this up.
Yeah.
So right there, you know, she to me now it sounds like she was consenting. Hey, I'm saying, look, look. The more you read into this, like I said before, I can read a scripture, and you can read a scripture, and we'll get two total different meanings out of it. But it takes everybody to come together to bring it together.
Well, I see it, you know, too. Also, what you always said, it was good to him. It was good to her.
Well, like I said, it was a choice that they both made,
That's right.
and there were consequences that came out for both.
That's the only thing. That's why we come back.
All right, but like he says, and the woman conceived and sent and told David and said, I am with child. So to me right here, this wasn't just in one day. This was at least 30 days. All right, it had to be at least 30 days for her to know that she was pregnant, because we didn't have those pregnancy tests back then. They didn't have that. The only thing they could rely on was, all right, I didn't have my cycle this month, so something is not right. So that's the only thing she can go on.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing this is over 30 days. Had to be, because she took 7 days after, which for them, let them know that it was the right time to conceive after that, because that menstrual cycle and 7 days later, it is the most logical time for them to conceive. So for me, it had to be at least 30 days. It says, and it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. Okay, so verse 5 down to verse 14. All right, so the things that has happened. That's why I say when you see that it skipped a whole lot, there's valuable information that you're missing.
Yeah.
All right, so when she told him that she conceived, now David is, David has that shovel in his hand, and he's constantly digging, and he's standing in the hole. He's constantly digging. So he's digging himself further and further in the hole. So when she found out that she was pregnant and told David, David started trying to cover it up.
Sure did.
So the first thing David did was he sent for Uriah to come, and he says, you know what, since you're doing such a good job, let me reward you. How about go home to your wife? Go home to your wife and, sleep with your wife. Have fun with your wife. Enjoy her, because you're doing such a good job. So he was trying to get Uriah to lay with his wife, because now he know that she's pregnant. So he's trying to say, well, if he lay with his wife and a baby shows up, then he can assume that is his.
Yeah.
So he's trying. That happens today now, okay? These things happens today. It's not just the Bible now. All right, so I'm not just throwing anything out there to you. It's still happening.
It happened.
So he's like, you know what? Why don't you go and lay? But see, Uriah was such a man of valor. Uriah says, you know what? Can't do it. My men is still out there. I'm not going home to enjoy myself because they can't go and enjoy themselves. So Uriah stuck with that. But see, David wasn't going to let up. David did not let up. David says, you know what? I'm going to bring him to my house. So they sit there and drink. He get Uriah drunk.
Sure.
Says, you know what? Maybe if he gets drunk, he'll stumble on back to the house like most drunk people do. And probably sleep with his wife then. Well, even when Uriah got drunk, he still had a better head than David did.
Yeah.
See, what I've been told about a drunk man tells the truth. So by Uriah not acting out there like that after he got drunk, that was exactly who Uriah was. Uriah was a man of honor. So Uriah did not run back to his wife, even though because he knew what was right. Uriah did exactly what he should have been doing, and David was still trying to push him. But David didn't stop there.
No, he wasn't satisfied.
David did not stop. There was still some things. David still needed to cover the fact up that he committed adultery with a married woman. And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah.
Sure did.
Let about me.
Yeah. All of them.
Look, inside this letter that David gave Uriah to take to Joab, that letter said, set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die. So Uriah is carrying his death sentence. But see, Uriah is a man of honor, a man of valor. He holding the letter, and he will not peek at it. Because the king gave him a letter to give to a certain person. He's doing just that. He's holding that letter. I'm not going to look in it. I'm not tempted to look in it. Even though he probably wondering what kind of message the king is sending to the general. He's still not going to look at it. I don't know how many people today can actually do that. You know you're going to war. You're going to war and you know that you're one of the soldiers and somebody gave you a letter to give to your commander. You want to know what is actually going to happen. So you probably hold it up to the light. let me see what's up in there. But Uriah did not do no such a thing.
But
Uriah,
keep in mind, he want to go back to the battle.
yeah.
So he's eager to hey, I'm ready to go back anyway.
He does.
You know, he said, I'm ready to go back.
Uriah is fighting for a
And
cause.
trust is king.
Yeah.
Which is why God said, I'm going to get you, David. Because you got people trust you with their lives. And you playing around. Which is why God is so hard on you.
Yep.
Like, you know, a lot of people want me to pastor and the bishop, all that. God going to take care of them first because you're responsible for all these souls.
Yeah, that's right.
And David was responsible for all these souls here. And you playing games? God said, I'm definitely coming for you.
You know, should I? Well, let me skip. I'm gonna skip 16, but I'm gonna come back to 16. I'm gonna go to 17. All right, it says, and the men of the city went out and fought with Joab, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also. So I did that because 15 and 17 goes together. Okay, so he sent that letter through Uriah to give to Joab. Now, what he was telling Joab was, I want you to put Uriah in the forefront where you know the battle is going to be the worst at. And when you get there, leave him. No, stick him out there in harm's way because you know you got the archers, they're shooting arrows, and the closer you get to the wall, the more subject you are to get hit. You know, so he told Joab to lead him up there, and then when you get up there where it's the worst, leave him. So that you know for sure he's going to die. But verse 17, it says, and the men of the city went out and fought with Joab, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also. So right here, I'm glad he did it like that because Joab disobeyed David. Joab says, you know what, I'm not going to do that. That is just crazy. Why would I send my best fighter out there by himself and leave him?
Yeah.
Joab fought with them. He never left them. So he was able to return back. And he said first, some of your men died, which hurt David. But he had to pacify David by saying also Uriah died, because that was the main thing that David really wanted to happen.
That's right.
And it was all a selfish thing when it came to David. David was acting very selfish. I know we're all, you know, King David, yeah, King David. King David is a human being, just like us.
Right.
We are going to make mistakes. We are going to sin. We are going to do things that is just not right at the moment. But see, the thing that I said before is God would never ask us to do anything he didn't think we was capable of doing. When God says thou shalt not commit adultery, he know that we are capable of sticking with one person. We just don't want to. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife.
Right.
He know that we can do that. But we just don't want to. We'll sit all day long and peep out the window just like this. Oh my goodness, you see there it ain't? Yeah. Man, I clear. We would do that.
Good.
We do things just like that. Even though God says don't do it. See, we would listen to, like I was talking with my mother the other day about COVID-19. When that started, you know, they never really made churches close down. They suggested that because of COVID, we suggest that y'all shut down. And 90% of the state closed down. Left a few that kept running. Because it was not an order given. They suggested. But we all ran with it. Well, not we all, because I didn't. There was a lot of people that ran with it and said, well, the government is shutting down the churches. The government didn't shut down the churches. The people shut down the churches.
That's right.
Y'all found a reason to close down. You didn't want to go anywhere. And because you didn't want to go, that was your excuse. Well, the government shut us down. We can't go to church today. That was your excuse.
So we come back no more.
Then Jacob, well, I said I was going to go back. It says, and it came to pass when Joab observed the city, that he assigned Uriah unto a place where he knew that valiant men were. So, in other words, he placed Uriah right where he knew there was going to be a lot of great fighters fighting. But like I said in verse 17, he did not leave Uriah. He sat there with Uriah the whole time and fought.
Yeah.
Then Joab sent and told David all the things concerning the war. See, because David was anxious to find out. The only thing that David wanted to know was what happened to Uriah. That's all he wanted to know, for real. That's the only thing he wanted to know was what happened to Uriah. But because Joab came back and told him everything that happened, David got a little heartbroken, hurt, because some of his men, his great warriors died in battle, which by his orders it should not have happened, because the orders that he sent was, when you get Uriah out there where the battle is the hardest, leave, which would have caused him to die alone. Joab decided to fight with him along with the soldiers, and most of them died along with Uriah. So after David started feeling really bad, and you'll see that between 18 and 26, you'll find out where David started getting sad. All right, so David started getting real sad about what happened, and so Joab ended off with saying Uriah also died, to pacify him, to make him feel better about the situation. Because Joab was really going to get punished by David for disobeying him, but because he said Uriah died also, that killed all of that. Because now David got what he asked for. But, like I said before, and I'm going to always say this, the choices that you make has consequences. For everything that you decide to do, there's always going to be a consequence that goes along with it that you may or may not agree with. But because you decided to go that route, these are the things that you have to look forward to. And when the wife, all right, pay attention. All right. Verse 26, it says, and when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she mourned for her husband. I read it, but did you get it? Read it again. And when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she mourned for her husband. They was letting you know that Uriah and Bathsheba, there was nothing going to separate that. They were together. That was no doubt about that. Uriah and Bathsheba belonged together. David had no mention in here at all, which means Bathsheba was nothing to David. Bathsheba was all Uriah's. And they mentioned it here 3 times just to specify that. She was the wife. Uriah was her husband. And her husband's death had nothing to do with David's army lost. David's army caused him to die. No, it was Uriah died. Yeah. That's the only thing that Bathsheba cared about at that time. Her husband died. There could have been 1,000 more men that died at war, but the only one that concerned her was Uriah. What happened at war? There was a lot of casualties. Well, how about Uriah? That's the only thing she was worried about. She didn't care about David. No, David lost the war. She didn't care about that. She was concerned about Uriah. And when the mourning was past, see, they mourned for 7 days. Let's see. I did want to go to that, but hold on. And when the mourning was past, David sent and fetched her again. He first sent and took her. now he's sending to fetch her. Still, in my eyesight, now I'm telling y'all now, it's my eyesight. I don't know what y'all are seeing out of this, but still with me, this is an unwilling act for her. I mean, she's going because he's the king now. And you know, JD pointed something out that I really didn't pay no attention to, that she went in and let David know that she was pregnant, meant that may have been a consensual act for her. So I still don't know now, but it says here that David sent and fetched for her again. So in other words, he took her again.
That was his plan all along.
That was his whole plan, really was to cover up his act. He didn't want nobody to know what he did.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing. He didn't want anybody to know what he did. He already knew that God knew.
Yeah.
But he didn't want anybody to know. You know, we do a lot of things in the dark because we don't want people to know what we did, but we already know that God knows.
That's it.
But she was sent the word to him that she was with child, she had to tell somebody, and they had to deliver that message to David, right? So it was more than her and David knew about her pregnancy.
Again, there's something else that I overlooked.
Yeah.
All right. So he fetched her to his house, and she became his wife and bare him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord.
That's right.
Somebody real quick, go to Galatians 6th chapter and read the 7th verse.
I'm going to read NLT version.
That's
Is that
fine.
okay?
That's fine.
Galatians 6 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. I'm going to do King James because I do like King James too.
Yeah.
Be not deceived.
Right.
God is not mocked.
Mocked.
For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap.
So if you do dirt, dirt is going to come up.
That's right.
I don't care who you hiding from, the truth will always rise. I might be hiding from my wife things that I may or may not be doing. The truth will come up. See, that's why a lot of men now don't cheat. Because we follow this a lot. You know, because when it says that whatever you sow, that you will reap. You know what'll hurt a man? Even though a man will be out there doing it every day of his life. Man cheating all day long, every day. But the one thing that will hurt him is to find out his wife cheating. I don't care what it is that man is doing. When he find out that there's somebody else with his wife, oh, he hurt. He really hurt because he really did think he was the only one. That would really hurt. So a lot of men, well, those that's following this here, because us men are really afraid of this here. If any woman want to know, men are afraid of this, okay? So I'm going to show y'all. Men are afraid of this. When I say afraid of this, we are God-fearers, okay? You can talk the fear of God into a man. So when they really say, you know, get you a man and stick with them and take them to church and read the Bible with them, make sure God is in there. So when you get married, that's what the minister says, put God in y'all's lives. When you actually do that for real, you ain't got a man that's going to stray away. I can tell you that for a fact. When you actually put God in your life, you will never find a man to stray away from you as long as that God is really in there. Y'all can be sitting there talking and discussing whatever you want to talk and discuss. But if it's really not God, he's going. But if that's God, he's staying. He'll never cross you because that's God. All right, I'm saying that because I got daughters, you know. So if any man crossed my daughter, I already know that probably my daughter probably did something to make it happen. But that man gonna have to deal with me. I don't care how bad my daughters was.
Oh, yeah.
You know, my daughters may have been the problem, but now you my problem because they're my daughters.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right.
One.
So now it jumps down to verse 13 in chapter 12. You know, so what happened in between all of that? David ran into a man named Nathan, the prophet. He ran into Nathan, and Nathan was giving him a parable.
Yep.
You know, Nathan was talking to him about a rich man and a poor man. Rich man had all this stuff, but yet, instead of pulling from what he already had, he decided to take it from a poor man. You know, so, and when they asked him, I know I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but when Nathan asked David what should happen, you know, David gave him an answer. David says, well, this is just not right. I'm going to tell you, this man should be put to death. Because David heard the story. David made his conclusion about the story. And the way David felt about how this rich man was treating this poor man, David says, you know what? That's not right. He should be put to death. And then Nathan told David, says, the man I speak of is you.
The man. The man.
Yeah. So David really answered what should happen to him.
Yeah.
But see, if you keep on reading, you'll find out that David didn't die.
No. That's all.
But there's a lot of things that may have made David wish he did die. Because, like Galatians 6 and 7 says, for whatsoever a man soweth, that he will reap. You know, so God was literally telling David, says, you know, I gave you everything. I gave you lands, I gave you houses, I gave you your wife, anything that you would have ever wanted. I would have given it to you. But yet, you took something that didn't belong to you. Now, not to mention, all right, I'm just going to go back just to 27, just, not all the way back, but just to 27. Go back when he says, David fetched her and took into his house, and she became his wife. That was a no-no. Now, first off, David was a king. All right? David was the king, and being a king, he was not authorized in polygamy. And polygamy means to have more than one wife. He could not do that. You know, one was all the king was allowed to have. And on top of that, David was a king. But see, he fetched and married Bathsheba, which was the wife of Uriah. Uriah was a Hittite, which means she was not a Jew. And the law that was given was for the kings, they was only to pull a wife from the Israelites, from Israel. That was it. He was not allowed to marry a Jew, but he did it anyway. And like we're going to take it back again, you know, because David did this just to cover up the baby.
Yeah.
That's the reason he did all these things that he did, to cover up the mistake that he made, the sin that he done. He did all of this to cover that one sin up. But how many people in here has ever told a lie? Now, mind you, if you don't raise your hand now. All right. So we've all told a lie at some point in our life.
Yeah.
So the thing is, whenever you tell a lie, you can't forget the lie that you told. Because you have to remember that lie so that you can lie again to cover that lie up.
Yeah.
And for the next 7 years, you have to keep that lie in your mind, because there's going to be other lies that you're going to have to tell to cover up the lie again. Well, David. The things that David has done is just outright just wrong. And see, David marrying this Jew. Well, yeah, David marrying this Jew to cover up the baby, to cover up the sin. But see, he's already done damage. Not in my man's eyes, David is still the king. In man's eyes, David is still the king. David can do whatever David want to do because David is the king. David is in charge of us. David is the big man. David can do whatever he want to do. As long as he king, ain't going to bother David. But what about in God's eyesight?
That's one.
See, in God's eyesight, God is displeased with the things that David has done.
That's right.
And when this child was born, it says here, and David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said unto David, the Lord also hath put away thy sin. Thou shalt not die. So, yes. And David had admitted inside. See, you can say whatever you want to say, but until your confessions is sincere, it don't mean anything to God. So right here, David confessed. David says, I have sinned unto God.
That's right.
And the important part, the real important part in that verse is the Lord also hath put away thy sin. God forgave him for that sin.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not die. Howbeit, but, there's always a but. Y'all know there's a but.
Yeah.
Because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme. The child also that is born unto thee shall surely die. I cheated on my wife. And I went to my wife. And no, I didn't cheat on my wife, okay? Y'all don't look at me like that. I didn't. All right, I promise I didn't. Okay, so the thing is, what I'm saying is, I have cheated on my wife, and I went to her, and I asked for her forgiveness. I said, baby, I'm sorry. I would not do that again. Would you please forgive me? And my wife forgives me. That do not take away what I have done. That do not change the consequences that's going to come along with what I have done. Because even though my wife had forgiven me for cheating, she is now going to treat me differently. My wife is not going to allow me to do certain things that she normally used to because she can't trust me anymore. That's the thing. She can't trust me. So just because David confessed his sins and God forgave him, his consequences are still there. You cannot redo what you already did wrong and change it. What you did is already done. There's no changing that.
Coming back.
You can't change the past. That's why my father used to teach us growing up, if it happened yesterday, leave it back there in yesterday. Don't bring yesterday back up because it ain't going to change anything. You was mad at me yesterday for what I did. If you bring it up again today, you're going to be mad at me again today for bringing up yesterday's news. So move forward. The thing about this is David cannot change what he has already done. He confessed. God forgave him. But he still have those consequences. He is not going to go unpunished. They did say that the newborn, the child, shall surely die. And Nathan departed unto his house, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. The child died because of what David did. Now, a lot of people would look at that as, what kind of God would just take a child like that? Well, the child is not at fault. The child didn't do anything wrong. The child is not the one being punished. See, we look at this as the child is being punished. No, the child is not being punished. The child is being saved, not being punished. Because if you look back at David's children that he already have, David's children are terrible. His children are not right. And if this child was born in that not right style, this child would, you know how they would say, don't hang around. I talked about it last week. Keep yourself away from these people, otherwise you will start to pick up their habits. These would be his brothers, his big brothers, that would be showing him how to do this and how to do that. And in his mind side, now this is me talking now, okay? So in his mind, he would be following the lead. His brothers can't be wrong. My daddy's the king. These are my brothers. They're telling me what to do, showing me this and that. So he would have eventually ended up doing something, and I'm paraphrasing again because everybody that grows up into a bad household do not eventually turn out bad. No. But I'm just saying, I'm trying to clarify myself here, you know? And that's what all of us do. We try to clarify the things that has happened, because the only thing that we really got to go on is the Bible. And as I've been taught, don't just read the Bible, read between the lines. There is always something, always a reason, and most of the time you would end up having to go to different books to find out what happened in between this, what happened in between that, why did this happen, why did that happen. But just by reading one book, you only get that version.
Child didn't want the glory between him and the Lord, because David said, you know, I'm trying to make it to where my baby is. If you read in the scriptures, you'll see where he says that.
So now this is the thing here. This is what I really wanted to get out. I know we've been talking about David. Yeah, yes, sir. Go ahead. Yeah, see, that's another fact that he brought up. You know, and that was Daniel, right? Says the woman would rather die than to sin. So right there, that's another fact that Bathsheba had a choice. Bathsheba did have a choice. So the more we still get points out there, the more these things keep changing. Because at first I'm looking at this as Bathsheba was forced into it. Now he's telling again that, you know, in Daniel, woman says, I'd rather die than commit the sin. So, like I said, y'all gonna have to go through this yourself.
Oh yeah.
But this the thing I wanted to get out right here. Just because you have done something that you ain't got no business doing. Well, let me change that because what I'm trying to establish here is the reason why we need to be going to school. Okay, so I'm not going to say just because we ain't got. I'm not going to say that. All right, so just because we do not have just because we do not do anything that we should be doing, you know, we can be bad people, we can be terrible, we can have committed all kinds of crimes. That's not our death sentence. That is not the end of the world. We have done bad things. That is not the end of the world. Just because we have lived a life of crime all of our life, that doesn't mean our life stops. David has done, if you go through the things that David has done, he committed adultery. He coveted the neighbor's wife. He committed murder. David broke these laws that God strictly forbid. He broke these laws. But that did not stop David from living the life that God intended for him to live. Right. David did everything that he should have done after all of this. David confessed. David changed his ways. David stopped doing all of these things. He did it no more. And in turn, David and Bathsheba, yes, they got married. They did get married. God did ordain that marriage. And what came out of that was King Solomon. Yeah. Another great king that came from the lineage of King David. Yeah. Which that is everything that God had promised from the beginning. The lineage was going to come from Abraham. Father Abraham. He was going to have sons of many. And the lineage was going to keep going straight down. King David. And it's still going. And we are still in that lineage. Whether you want to believe that or not. So we are royalty. Look, I'm a prince. I'm a prince. I ain't going to never be king because, you know, my father's the king. I would never be the king, but I enjoy being the prince. And that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be the prince because I am in a family of royalty. I'm done with my lesson. I'm turning this over into the hands of the superintendent.
Oh, Lord.